Welcome one and all to Night Owl. Today, we'll be talking about Zebb Quinn. He was born May 12, 1981, in Asheville, North Carolina, and was always considered by most as a good boy, a loving son, and hard worker. Then, on January 2, 2000, he suddenly disappeared. It was about 9 o'clock on a Sunday night, January 2, 2000. He had just finished up his work day at the local Walmart. He had made plans to get together with a friend of his, a guy named Jason Owens. You see, Zebb was looking for a new used car, and well, old Jason seemed to know of a used car for sale in Leicester. So, off they went, both driving their own cars. At one point they stopped at a local gas station to buy some pop, where they were caught on CCTV. And that was the last confirmed sighting of Zebb. According to one story told by Jason, they went on their merry way, until Zebb started to flash his headlights to get Jason to pull over. Zebb then told Jason that his pager just went off, and he had to get to a phone to return the call. For you young whippersnappers, a pager was something they used before smartphones. Anyway, when he returned, he was really worked up, and he told Jason, "Sorry dude, I gotta go." He then tore out of there, nailing the back end of Jason's car, which I guess injured Jason a little bit. In fact, he had to seek out medical attention for a head injury and some banged up ribs. When he was asked by the doctors what happened, he just said he got rear-ended. But of course, there was no police report made about the accident. Now, this is where the story gets a little weird. It seems that a couple of days after Zebb went missing, some dude, pretending to be Zebb, called the Walmart where he worked and talked to one of Zebb's coworkers. He said that he wouldn't be in for his shift because he's sick. Now, that coworker thought the call was a bit strange, seeing how she knew Zebb, and she knew that was not his voice. So, she did the whole star 69 thing. And do you know where that number was tracked back to? A pay phone at the local Volvo factory. And who worked at this factory? Why, none other than Jason Owens. Wow, the plot thickens, as they say. Of course, Jason said he made the call for Zebb at Zebb's request, because he's such a good friend. Now, this next part is a little confusing when it comes to the timeline. Some sources such as Wikipedia, as well as other news sources, says this happened on January the 6th, while other news sources, such as a local station Channel 13 News, says it was the 16th of January. Now, even though the timeline is, of course, very important, I don't think it's quite as important as what happened during that period. You see, Zebb's mom, Denise Vlahakis, received a call from a coworker of hers. They were both nurses at the Asheville hospital. She was also a one-time classmate of Zebb. Anyway, she said that she had spotted Zebb's car, a Mazda Protege, in the parking lot of the Little Pigs barbecue restaurant, which is adjacent to the hospital. The thing is, the car wasn't there before. It's like it just appeared out of nowhere. So of course, the boys in blue were called to check it out. And what did they find? Well, when they arrived at the scene, they discovered that the lights were still on for one, which means it couldn't have been sitting there for that long. And within the car itself, they found several drinking bottles, a plastic hotel key, a jacket, and a Labrador mixed puppy. The key, well, the police weren't able to nail down what hotel it came from. The jacket, it was determined not to be Zedd's. It wasn't even his size. As for the puppy, don't worry, he was fine. But he didn't belong to Zebb either. In fact, he didn't belong to anybody. So he ended up being adopted by one of the investigators. But do you know what the weirdest thing about the car was? It wasn't so much what they found on the inside of the car, but on the outside of the car. On the back window of the car, there was a pair of kissy lips and an exclamation point drawn with lipstick. They figure whoever parked the car must have known the family well enough to know that they worked nearby, so the car would be discovered soon. So anywho, the police did their whole forensics thing, but they didn't find any new leads. However, a little bit later, a few witnesses came forward and said that they saw Zebb's car being driven around town by a woman. With help from their description, the police were able to make a composite sketch of the driver. This sketch looked a lot like a woman named Misty Taylor. And who was Misty Taylor? Well, she was a young lady that Zebb had the hots for. But there was a slight problem. Miss Taylor already had a boyfriend, a dude named Wesley Smith. Was Wesley a nice guy? Well, not according to Zebb. Zebb would tell people how much of a jealous, abusive a-hole he was. The guy even threatened Zebb once when he found out that he was talking to Misty. When interviewed, Misty said there was nothing romantic between Zebb and her, and that they were just friends. Of course, both Wesley and Misty denied having anything to do with what happened to Zebb. The police even took DNA samples from them about 9 years after Zebb went missing. When asked about the results, the police just said that it was tough to get results from DNA if you have nothing to compare it to. Now, I found that a little bit odd myself. I mean, are you saying there was no DNA at all in the car? If you have a sample from the car, then you test against someone's DNA, then either you get a match or you don't. Either or, you still have some kind of result. Honestly, guys, I really don't know how ambitious of an investigation the cops did. Like the jacket, for example, you'd figure there must be someone's DNA on it. But it doesn't even seem like they gave it the Cinderella treatment, seeing if it fit one of the suspects or people of interest. I mean, it may not get you a conviction, but it might have pointed them in the right direction. Anyway, I'm sorry, maybe I'm being unfair to the police. They did, after all, pull the phone records. Remember that pager message I mentioned earlier? Well, the call originated from the phone of one Ina Ustic, who was Zebb's aunt. This aunt, well, Zebb really didn't have much to do with her for whatever reason. She said it wasn't possible for her to have been the one to make the call. And why? Because she wasn't even home at the time. In fact, she was over at her friend's place having dinner. Her name was Tamara Taylor. She was Misty's mom. Both Misty and Wesley was at this dinner as well. But when she got home that night, she had discovered that her home had been broken into. Now, nothing seemed to be missing, but she did notice some items like picture frames have been moved around a bit. So she naturally filed a police report. The case remained open for years, even though nothing new really popped up. That was until March 17, 2015, when tragedy struck the home of the pregnant Christy Schoen and her husband J.T. Codd. They worked in the entertainment industry, on the Food Network to be precise. He behind the cameras as a producer, her in front of them as the star of her own show. The three were unalived by Jason Owens. How did they tie him to this case? Well, one of Jason's neighbors reported suspicious activity over on his property, so the cops got a search warrant and checked it out. What they found was pretty damning. They found human remains and some personal items belonging to the Cobbs. The weird thing is, a few days after the cops made their discoveries, there was a big fire that tore through Jason's property. Who set it ablaze? No one knows. Now, he did fess up to unaliving them, but he said it was an accident. He claimed he accidentally ran them over. Then, instead of doing what most people would do if they had an active brain cell, like calling the cops, he just got rid of the bodies. There was a problem with his story, though. Everyone thought he was full of crap. The prosecution wanted him unalived by the state, but ended up taking a plea deal from Jason. So, on April 27, 2017, the judge sentenced Jason to between 60 and 75 years in jail, pretty much ending any chance of him ever breathing free air again. Now, you might be saying to yourself, what happened to the Cobbs was truly tragic and all, but what's that got to do with Zebb, beyond Jason being a person of interest in Zebb's case? Well, it seems that once the details about how Jason had burnt the Cobbs' bodies came out, it jogged the memory of Gene Owens, Jason's uncle. On May 29, 2015, Gene had an interview with the police in which he stated that it reminded him of a construction project that Jason had done at one of Jason's properties and advised the cops to take a little look-see. Gene, of course, denied having any involvement or even any actual knowledge when it comes to what happened to Zebb. So, armed with a warrant, the police descended on Jason's property. And what did they find? They found leather material, some fabric, and some hard fragments. They also found some white powdery substance, pieces of metal and concrete, as well as several bags that was filled with pulverized lime or mortar mix. Now, was any of their findings connected to Zebb? We don't know. The cops just said they couldn't comment on it because it was an ongoing investigation. But we do know that a geologist did test the samples and found no evidence at all that they were bone or any other types of human remains. But it seems after he got sentenced for what he did to the Cobbs, Jason got a little bit chatty. It's at his point he told the police his version of what happened to Zebb. He said that Zebb was actually unalived by Jason's uncle Gene. And here's how, according to Jason, it played out. Remember how I said Zebb had the hots for Misty, but she had a jealous boyfriend named Wesley? Well, the way Jason tells it, Wesley actually paid Gene to unalive Zebb. He said that both he and Zebb were tricked into going out to Pisgah National Forest where Zebb had hopes to see Misty. But When they got there, instead of Misty being there, all they found was Gene and his truck. Gene then pulled out his .22 rifle and unalived 18-year-old Zebb. Gene then cut up his body and burnt the remains. According to Jason, his only crime in that case was helping his uncle to cover it up. He told the police to go check out the spot where Zebb was unalived, a part of Pisgah National Forest called the Bent Creek Experimental Forest, where they would indeed find some evidence. And well, that is exactly what the cops did. And upon checking out this new lead, they did find some shells for a .22. The DA had some major doubts about Jason's story, as I imagine did a lot of people. But at any rate, on July 10, 2017, Jason was formally charged with unaliving Zebb in the first degree. There was unfortunately quite a few delays in getting the trial underway, like COVID-19. Wow, that delayed everything, didn't it? I guess I got off pretty lucky. I mean, all I remember COVID delaying for me was getting toilet paper. Wait a second, that's not very lucky at all, is it? Anyway, the trial finally got started July 25, 2022. Jason's defense team offered a plea deal. They said he was willing to plead guilty to an accessory after the fact charge, which the prosecutor actually agreed to. Now, I know what y'all's thinking. What the hell? Why in the bloody blue blazes would the prosecutor agree to that? I mean, an accessory after the fact charge is a huge drop from being charged with unaliving someone in the first degree. And well, you wouldn't be wrong for thinking that. But the prosecutor felt that they didn't actually have enough proof that Jason actually unalived Zebb himself to get a conviction on that. So he accepted the plea deal, figuring that partial justice is better than no justice at all. Jason received 12.5 years to 15.5 years. Based on Jason's story, none of the others that he tried to implicate in the crime was ever charged with anything, including Gene, who passed away in 2017. Now, do I believe Jason's story? I don't know if I do or I don't. But what I do know is that it wasn't just Zebb's life that was taken, it was his very future. Never to know what it's like to be married, to hold your firstborn in your hands, never to know what it's like to walk your daughter down the aisle, and never to know what it's like to welcome your first grandchild into this world. And because of that theft of a future, the perpetrator should spend the rest of eternity in hell. We at Night Owl want to send our condolences out to the Quinn family. I hope that one day you have the peace you truly deserve. Well, thanks for stopping by. If you liked this video, then please hit like and subscribe and share it. It'll really help our channel out. And if you have any cases you'd like me to cover, or anything you'd like to comment on, or any thoughts on this case, then please, by all means, leave me a post in the comments. Until next time, good night.